good, man.
Good morning, everybody. All right. Let's worship the King this morning. Let's worship the King. Oh, worship the King of glorious above. Gratefully sing His power and His love. Our shield and defender, the Ancient of Days, pavilion in splendor and girded with praise. Tell of His might, oh, sing of His grace, whose robe is the light, whose canopy space, His chariots of wrath, the deep thunder clouds form, and dark is His path on the wings of the storm. Children of dust and feeble as frail, in You we trust, nor finding to fail. Thy mercies how tender, how firm to the end. Our Maker, Defender, Redeemer, and Friend. Good job. Thank you. All right, don't forget to sign up for our Thanksgiving themed luncheon next week. Sign up list is over here. You know what you're going to bring. Okay, so this is a question you really have to listen to because I think you have to figure out the answer. You have to figure it out. Okay.
We need a calculator.
No.
Do it in your head.
On a roadside in Grunstadt, Germany. Is that Grunstadt? Grunstadt. Grunstadt. Okay, Germany. A young man flagged down a passing car. When a female driver stopped to help him, he unfolded a map and asked her for directions. Distracted by the map, she didn't notice when he reached into the car and swiped her wallet. After she pointed out the route he was looking for in a gentlemanly gesture, he kissed her hand and thanked her. When she discovered her wallet had been lifted, she went to the police. How did they solve the crime? Laura.
DNA.
How?
Kissed her.
Yeah! They swabbed the back of her hand and collected enough DNA evidence to identify the crook. Good job. All right. Russell, it's all you, man. You get to go extra long.
Yeah.
We'll just let you ride it forward. Get out of the way.
Good morning, all. So you get to have me extra long. I haven't been here for 2 weeks, and I will be speaking next week. So yes, let's make this really, really big. Blow it out. All right. So we're going to go all the way back to Genesis.
The luncheon is next week. Lunction's
Yeah.
next week. He doesn't. We don't have speakers for lunch.
I do what I'm told.
He's kidding. We're going to tell you to do something.
Right. Yeah, well.
He's just saying that because his mama's here and he does what he's told.
Oh well. She knows how that works, doesn't she? Yeah. I'll think it's.
Barely
Thank you.
smile.
It's okay. So my 7-Elevens have kind of disappeared, and we put them in a cup holder on our love seat. It has like a little center console kind of thing, and the dog likes to knock things out of it. So it apparently was knocked out at some point, like either at night or something, and then it went missing, and I think the cat either played with it, and it's a big mug, but the cat played with it. So yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
Did you play with your cup?
The cat will play with anything. The cat will play with plastic bags. That's his favorite thing.
Well, mine chews on
So,
mine.
yeah, if we bring in plastic bags, like Walmart bags and stuff, if you put it on the floor, the cat will play with it.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll just be listening to hear crinkle, 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 and he'll kind of like hide it or something. And then if you get a box and you open the box and pull things out of it,
Oh, yeah.
the first thing he wants to do is know what was in there, what is it.
They love box.
Yeah.
But don't buy him a toy.
He'll lose his toys. He puts them under the couch, and then when we go to move everything, then he finds them and he starts playing with them. Like, you put it there. You put it there. Like a kid. Yeah. But we are in Matthew 12 this morning. I still sound a little funny. I'm still processing, working on that. It's always something when you get sick, and because for 2 Wednesdays ago till last Wednesday, I didn't leave the house but to go to the doctor. It was just one of those, you're weak, you're drained, you know you're coughing all the time. Yeah. So thankfully I'm back. I'm getting to be 100%. Yeah, I appreciate the thoughts. I got to see most of you on Sunday, so that was good. So we're in Matthew 12. We're starting at 33, but I kind of want to preface this. So I know it's been a couple weeks since I've been here, since I kind of been running my mouth. So just real quick recap. Again, he's talking to the Pharisees. They've had an interesting encounter where he's done something that's against their, what you would call code, or the Mishnah. It's sort of the teachings that they've had where someone interpreted what the law says, and then they built the hedge around the law. And when the hedge is around the law, if you don't violate the hedge, you don't violate the law. So they made all these rules, and you don't do this on the Sabbath, you don't do this. So Jesus is kind of having this interaction. Isn't it better that my disciples can eat? They're picking the heads off the grain, but they're fine. It's no big deal. Let me give you an illustration. And then he says, of course, it's good to heal on the Sabbath, and he goes into all that. So he's really fighting them at a basic level, because they're all about the superfluous, the outside. They're all about there's a word there that I'm missing. Everything is very shallow to them, okay? They want to focus on everything on the outside and not really care about what's in the middle. Again, whitewashed tombs, as Christ relays them. So, all of that affects what we're coming into now. Again, he talks about how they're calling what he does when he's casting out demons, they're saying that that's evil when it's a good thing. And he talks about the difference between saying, Jesus, you're evil, and talking about the Spirit of God, because the Spirit is the power of God. So you're not just insulting God, but you're insulting what he does. And God has a problem with that. We talked extensively about that a couple weeks ago. So this is what's going to influence everything that he's going to go into here, okay, in this section. Keeping all of that in mind. They're so focused on the superficial, that's the word, superficial. They're focused on the outside. They don't care about what's inside. And of course, when they're talking about things that are evil, they're calling good, or things that are good, they're calling evil, okay? That's what's going to influence this whole next section here. So can I get someone, it's a nice little chunk, to read from 33 down to 37, please?
Make a tree good, and its fruit will be good. Or make a tree bad, and its fruit will be bad. For a tree is recognized by its fruit. You brood of vipers, how can you who are evil say anything good? For out of the overflow of the heart the mouth speaks. The good man brings good things out of the good stored up in him, and the evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in him. But I tell you that men will have to give account on the day of judgment for every careless word they have spoken. For by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned. Is that 37?
Yep, you got it. So Jesus is doing one of his things again, kind of It's not a parable, it's an illustration. So what's his illustration that he's using? Well, what's the illustration he starts with? He starts with a good illustration. And is this what kind of illustration is this? Remember thinking about what we talked about before, about the superfluous and the superficial versus something deep. What is he kind of doing with the tree here? What kind of illustration is this?
Kind of a metaphor or an analogy. Ain't it?
The fruit.
Right, and before you eat fruit, you have to do what with it?
A lot of things you gotta do.
Before you wash it off, you have to do what with it?
Pick it.
Pick it. Before you pick it, you have to. Who said it? I heard the word.
Cultivate.
Someone said see it. You have to see it, okay? Again, Jesus doesn't jump right into the internal. He does what first?
Obvious.
External. The obvious, okay? Jesus always has to deal with what we focus on first. We always look to the outer first instead of the internal. And I know that for a fact because our traditions that we have stem from an era, the Reformation, when a lot of churches and a lot of people said, we're not living under this rule that says we have all of these, again, traditions and things that have to do with a lot of superficial stuff. Jesus attacks the superficial before he ever even touches on the internal. Okay? Every time he gives an illustration, all the words used here in Greek and that could be translated into Hebrew are all visual representations. All of them. Jesus loves the visual. The words here that he used when he talks about the tree, he says, make the fruit what or what?
Good or bad.
Now, there are two words used here, good or bad. And the next step, when he goes into the internal, he uses words that we see in English as, again, good or evil or good or bad. He's not using those same words in Greek, okay? He's using visual words for the first illustration that's visual, and using internal words for the next illustration that's internal. When you first see fruit, how do I know if it's good? The way it looks. Describe to me, when I think of fruit, of course, I think of apples. My mother grew up on an apple farm, so I was around apples all the time. There was a side of the road, you had the maple distillery, and you had the apple cider place. And when you drove by it, you smelled the delicious aroma of apples cooking. Now, the word here, when he talks about the good fruit, we see the word good. What is a better representation of when you see a fruit and you know that you can eat it? Give me a description of a fruit that when you look at it, you can say that I can eat it.
Right?
Right.
Delicious. Visually. And delicious visually is called what? Something's appealing to your eyes. When someone dresses up really nicely, we would call them
Attractions.
Beautiful.
beautiful. The word rendered good here is better rendered beautiful. Either make or cause the fruit of the tree to be beautiful. Now, when I know fruit is bad, how do I know it's bad? Blemish or what? Rotten. Rotten. The best illustration I have for that comes from a tree. When we moved down here to Virginia, we moved into a house in Norfolk that had a tree out front. I wouldn't really call this a tree. It was more like the shell of a tree. We didn't know why this tree was the shell of a tree until later on, like a year or two, I think, later. So this tree we knew was not good because it looked rotten. Why? Years later, my mom said we need to get rid of this tree. So tree removers came out and they started to cut into the tree to cut it down. And out of that tree poured termites. Delicious, lovely, beautiful termites. As we sit there having our homeschool and we see this tree go down and it's nothing but insects all over the place And later we're told, hey, you had termites in this tree. Then of course it's always, oh gosh, have they affected the house? Thankfully they didn't. They didn't come into the house. But the tree was rotted from the outside in? No. From the inside out. And the only way we know it is because the tree didn't have fruit, it had no leaves, it was ugly. The opposite of beautiful. Here, Jesus' illustration about a tree. And the same when he uses an illustration when he talks about trees. It is a visual representation. Either cause the fruit to be beautiful and appealing, much like when Eve took that fruit. It was pleasing to the eye. That's what we do first. We see things. That's how we covet. We see things first. That's why God so bases everything importantly. That 10th commandment is the last one there. Because a lot of our sins are based on what we see. The eyes are so important. Here, again, a visual representation, beautiful fruit, versus fruit that you may not always know is bad, but you can identify in different ways. You might have to then smell it. You might have to squeeze it, but it is internally rotten. Now, when he moves to the next set and he talks about the good and the evil, the word that he uses for good here, and I'm going to use this is Bible Hub's Strong's word for this word for good, okay? The word is agathos, okay? The word there doesn't just mean good. It's more like beneficial or virtuous. Virtuous meaning its foundations are pure and rock solid and good. In fact, as it says, the Greek word agathos is an adjective that primarily denotes that something is good in its nature and characteristics, and therefore beneficial in its effect. Okay? Whether it is to be seen or not, the word here good, anything called good here, the widest and most colorless of all words with this meaning is agathos, for good. The other word that we used previously was called kalon. That good is more pleasing to the eyes, beautiful. The word that's used here, when Jesus then goes into the good meaning internal, is the Greek word meaning 100% godly, good, virtuous character. There is no flaw in it when he talks about it. He's contrasting now. When you see a fruit, it's obvious the beauty of the thing externally. To now talk about when you bring up things from inside of you and they pour out, now you know what is on the inside because you don't always know, right? Don't always know there's a worm creeping around in that apple. Or there's something wrong with that banana, maybe a spider in it. I've heard of that, and that, oh, that eats me up. Okay. That's not why I don't eat bananas. I have to have ones that are very, very, very brown and ripe, because then they're missing a tartness. In fact, bananas, when you first bite into them, the green ones, there's a flavor there, a taste, that hits me so hard, I just want to throw it away. Whereas once they go past yellow and they get spotted and they're a little softer, that's when the B vitamins are the most prevalent. And all the sugars have been processed and it is now ripe. And then I can eat. What's that?
That means banana bread's healthy for you then.
That's right. Banana bread is healthy for you. So if you want to send banana bread to me, it is 705 Ridge Circle, Chesapeake, 232. I will take your banana bread. A week old or not. Whatever it be. So that's the word he's using here for good. When Jesus uses that word good, it's the same word used. When the rich young ruler comes to Jesus and says, and the different Gospels have it differently. One of them says, "Teacher, what good thing must I do to inherit eternal life?" The other one says, I think it's Matthew, that says, "Good teacher." And Jesus' response to good teacher is, "Why do you call me virtuous, holy, pure? Because only God is virtuous, holy, good, perfect, okay, in character." Now he's going to contrast that with the word evil. The word evil here is not sapron. That's where we get that rottenness. Anytime you see sapron in the Greek, it's talking about the internal decaying of something. Okay? The Hebrew word that relates to that word, the rotting here, is similar to the word. In fact, they have the same root as the word raka. Previously, we saw the word raka when it says, if you call someone a fool, you're in danger of going to the Sanhedrin and being chastised for calling them foolish. However, if you call them raka, meaning empty-headed, the word rakab is to rot, meaning it's not just empty, it's been decayed from the outside, from the inside out. Okay? So when he's talking about these people, he's talking about people who are decayed inside. There's nothing in there. It's kind of hollow. The word evil he's going to use here when it transitions to that is something that is the complete polar opposite of when he talks about something that's virtuous in its character and the very essence of what it is. And that goodness, it's going to be poneros. And poneros is something that is wicked or intentionally malicious. Evil is not just something that's done accidentally or something that's omitted. It is done with intention. A good character isn't always done intentionally. Good character can be seen just in the way that someone talks. So when he goes on to talk about careless words, you will be judged because people who internally are good and clean and virtuous, out of their mouth come words that are good, clean, and virtuous. And people who inside have rotted, the words that are produced from them are wicked, evil, and oftentimes intentionally malicious. Jesus doesn't talk about these things in light terminology. In fact, when Christ talks about, and this happens in Revelation, in one of my favorite illustrations there, when he talks about Laodicea. When you talk about something that is for God, if it's not for God, it is. Is there an ambivalent with God?
No.
No. You're either making the tree fruit good, or you're making the tree's fruit bad. There is no middle ground. For I would rather that you were either hot or cold, but because you are lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth.
Double-minded man's unstable in all of his ways.
God detests that. A double-minded man. Someone who, and I almost wore my name tag. Someone who, and I know, it's a good illustration. I didn't have a name tag on Friday. I'll use that. Because it was in my car. My wife was in Florida this weekend, so I drove her car to work. And what was not in her car that I needed for work? My badge. Either one of them. I have two in my car. The one that I use in my console that I throw on, and if I lose that one, say I wear it into the house accidentally because I'm thinking about something or singing a song, I have one in the glove compartment, ready to go. In her car, I don't have my badge, my identifier for work. However, all my coworkers know I work there, not a problem. Who doesn't know that I work there if I don't have badge? Now, people still ask me questions. How did I know? How did they know I worked there?
What you're doing.
Because of what I'm doing. What I'm doing didn't just imply that I worked there, but it demonstrated that I worked there. It wasn't just a badge that I wore. It wasn't just a symbol or a name.
The way you acted.
It was how I acted, how I behaved, who I was. Intrinsically was translated to them by what I was doing. And I didn't have to think about it. I just did my job. And they knew I worked there. Didn't need a badge. Walk through, say hi to everybody. I was walking through at one point. I had my cup in hand. And someone said, hey, Do you such and such? I have no badge on. They recognize that I work there immediately because of my attitude, my behavior, how I talk to customers, the questions I asked. Christ can't stand the middle of the road. The middle of the road is, I'm a Christian. I'm a believer in Jesus. I do the superficial. See all the things I do? In fact, someone once said to me, I won't tell you who, they once said to me, I give my tithe. I go to church. I'm a... They then said, I'm a good person. Well, how did they know they were good? Because their definition was they gave their tithe and they went to church. And yet if I looked at their life, I would have no concept that they were a believer. Not one. Because of the way that they talk. Because of the way that they, because of how they talk, not just in their speech in terms of swear words. I've known a lot of holy people that swore. Didn't bother me any because I knew who they were. Because of how they talked about other people. You want to know who they are internally, who someone's heart is, and whether or not they have the Spirit of God, or whether they're growing in their faith? Listen to what they say about other people. And I mean really listen. And if the words they say do nothing but tear down and never build up, tear apart and never rejoice, or scorn and deride and never praise, that's a problem. That's someone who's middle of the road. They want their fruit to look nice and good, but in the center there's nothing. And in the end, God doesn't care about the outside of that apple. He wants to know if it's good inside. He wants to know that that fruit is tasty. Jesus makes lots of illustrations about fruit because the people at the time were agricultural. They were farmers. They had vineyards. They grew plants. They needed that stuff for food. They couldn't go to Aldi and get it for cheap or on sale. It's not how it worked. You had to work for your food. Cheap, yes. It wasn't something that just was so readily available. Okay? And yet here we are in our day and age, and we still understand these illustrations. But do we really recognize the internal? If you want to know who people are, especially people who really profess to be a Christian, listen to them. Listen to the words that they say, how they talk about other people. Anybody have anything else for that?
I think you drove the knife in pretty good.
Well, I don't have to do it. Jesus does it for me.
Amen.
So, yeah. So now we're going to have a little bit of time here to get into something interesting. Before I go into this, as I was talking to Tyler, because Tyler and I have talked about this, and of course we're on the same page, because when you, I don't want to say that people are taught incorrectly, but you're taught tradition. Tradition isn't always correct. Tradition is often wrong, because a lot of the traditions that we hold come from latent Catholic things. And those latent Catholic things came because the Catholics went, how do we turn the pagans in this era, or this area, into Catholics? How do we get them to become Christians? We'll take all of their traditions and we'll turn them into ours. And we'll say, that's a Jesus thing. Well, it's not. Keeping that in mind, that the way we perceive something or the way we've been taught something isn't always correct, but it's done for a reason. We're going to jump in this next section, okay? Can I get someone to read from 38 down to, from 38 down to 42.
Then some of the scribes and Pharisees answered, saying, Teacher, we want to see a sign from you. But he answered and said to them, An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man, be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The men of Nineveh will rise up in the judgment with this generation and condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and indeed a greater than Jonah is here. The queen of the south will rise up in the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and indeed the greater than Solomon is here.
So, and this is true today, kind of, to a degree. We don't necessarily believe in the kind of miracles that they did. But again, Jesus is addressing a thing. When they say, "Can we see a sign?" they're going back to the what? Visual. They're going back to the superficial. We want to know that you're Messiah because of a sign. Jesus calls them what? Say it louder. Wicked we got. Wicked we got. Evil, okay. Evil generation. An evil people here. That's what they want. They just want to see something. But then he uses that other word. Adulterous. Why does Jesus use the word adulterous when referring to the generation of the people they're talking to? What is adultery?
Well, adultery comes in many forms. Normally we think of a sexual thing, but you can adulterate anything, pretty much.
No, not in this grammar. This is not English. This is Greek. He's using the word adultery here specifically for a relationship. What relationship? Unfaithfulness.
To God.
Now, unfaithfulness to God. What is that? Why does he use it here when he talks about a sign and they want a sign?
Because if you're a believer, you don't need one.
Remember who they were. They didn't believe in Jesus. They believed in who? Say it loud. Yahweh, God. Okay? Where did they get all the instructions for their belief? Does that tell them they're supposed to get a sign?
No.
So why would Jesus use the word adulterous? If he's talking about going away from that relationship. When we have a relationship with Christ, how do we have it? How do we have that relationship?
It's emotional, it's spiritual.
Emotional, spiritual. It's not this. He says, you guys want to know that God's doing work because you see it. You're taking the God that you believe in and you're supposed to be following, and you just want to corrupt that and go over here and see something nice. That's it. Again, when he talks about John, did you go out into the wilderness to see a man clothed in nice, beautiful clothes? Again, this is what everyone focuses on. And this is what the Jews at the time, and still kind of today, focus on. How do I know that you're blessed by God in the Jewish faith? How did they know?
You have a lot of money.
Lots of money. If I have lots of money, I'm going to do what? What am I going to do if I have lots of money and I'm a Jew in that era?
Spend it.
How am I spending it, Joe? What am I spending it on?
Nice stuff.
Think of the rich young ruler. Nice stuff. So if I want people to know I'm blessed because I want them to know I'm holy, how would I spend my money? What would I spend it on? If it's nice stuff, I would what? Clothes on yourself. I would make sure that all of you knew that I was blessed. Oh, Mary, beautiful clothes. In fact, if you want to know something that offends me, when you have those pictures, and thank Jesus, and I'm very thankful for this group, that there are no pictures of that white guy with long hair hanging around. That's not Jesus.
Is the big word idolatry play in this?
No, he's not talking about idolatry. Again, he's talking about your faith is not supposed to be based on the things that you see, but by the things that you are to perceive, perhaps emotionally, but mostly spiritually. So, Jesus says, fine, you guys want to see something? I'll give you a physical sign. Here we go in the breaking of tradition. sign that Jesus is going to give the people at that day?
Jonah in the belly of the whale, 3 days.
That's the sign. What does that represent?
Jesus.
Christ in the ground.
How long?
3 days.
3 nights.
When do we celebrate? What day of the week do we celebrate Christ's resurrection?
Sunday.
What was the first day of the week to Jews?
Saturday.
Saturday night and Sunday day. Right. Beginning Saturday night. Okay. So we're going into day. Sunday. First day of the week. What day do we celebrate his death?
Friday.
Someone count for me how many days, light days, it is from Friday to Sunday.
Depends on the Jewish calendar.
How does it depend on the Jewish calendar?
They don't have the same calendar we do.
Okay, how many days do they have in a week?
6.
You're guessing. Joe.
That's funny, because if they had 6, God wouldn't have been resting. He'd have been like, oh, 6-day make man. All right, let's go. Monday, here we come. No.
They have 7.
7. How many days do we have?
7.
Do they call the days the same?
No.
Does it matter?
No.
No.
First day of the week. We call it Sunday. They call it
Saturday.
first day of the week. First day of the
Thursday.
No, it's
Night?
the first day of the week.
day. First day of the week. 7 days. What day of the week do we celebrate Jesus died?
Friday.
Friday. How many days is it from Friday to Sunday?
2.
Does that matter whose calendar you're looking at when it comes to Jewish or ours? No. So Jesus here gives a sign. I'm going to be in the ground 3 sun days and 3 dark nights. How many days is it from Friday to Sunday?
Well, just 2 if you go 24 hours, day to night, right?
Did they go 24 hours day to night like we do?
Yes.
Why do we celebrate it on Friday?
Somebody told us to do that.
Because it's tradition.
Because it's tradition. Because it's tradition. And then Thursday, what do Catholics and some of us, what do we call Thursday? Anyone know?
Monday, Thursday.
Maundy Thursday. I never really got that term. I was like, Monday, Thursday? Monday, Thursday. Monday, Thursday. Is it Monday? Then when I saw the actual word, it's Monday. Oh, Monday. Monday. Did they forget it's M-O-N-D-A-Y, not M? No. Right. And then what is Wednesday the day before that? They have another one? What's the Wednesday before? Ash Wednesday.
Yeah.
No, it isn't
Ash Wednesday is way before that.
Yeah.
Ash
It's like the
Wednesday is.
beginning of Lent.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
What's that? What do they call that when then I'm wrong? What's that Wednesday?
Wednesday.
There's a term for it. Well, we call
I
it.
didn't know they had.
Wednesday.
They do something. There's another Catholic tradition that happens on the Wednesday. Feasts are associated
Talk
with
to
it.
a Catholic.
A saint's day. Yeah, talk to a Catholic. So all of these traditions come from where?
Catholic.
Catholics. And Catholics are what?
A lot of man-made traditions.
They're men. Wrong. Who said wrong? Who said wrong? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Really proud, Karen. Raise it. Catholics are wrong. Are we wrong?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Who's wrong?
Everybody.
We're all wrong. Who's right?
Jesus.
God.
Does it matter what day of the week we celebrate that Jesus died?
Not really.
Probably not.
Did he die on Friday?
We don't know.
Maybe.
All that matters is that he did it.
All that matters is that he did.
Yeah.
And yet, men take a thing that is spiritual, that we remember, and they make it physical. This is what you do on that day. It's Good Friday. We call it a name.
Eat fish.
Eat fish. Yeah, pescatorians. That's your fishmonger. Thursday. Monday, Thursday. We do traditions on that day. Wednesday. Whatever they call it, we do traditions on that day.
Okay. All right.
We have wrapped up God and his spirituality and his power that changes from the inside out and made it all about making things external, superficial. Do we have to have Resurrection Day services?
No, but it's nice.
What else is nice? Give me some nice things.
Pizza.
Yeah.
Lunch?
Fresh
Pizza?
air, waking up in the morning, sunshine.
What day? You know, I've always found it interesting. What do we usually eat on, I don't want to use that word, Easter? What do we usually eat?
Ham.
Ham. Who couldn't eat ham? The Jews, and Jesus was a
Jew.
We celebrate the death and resurrection of the Jewish Messiah by eating a very thing that he couldn't eat.
Go figure.
Don't understand it. I don't get it. But someone along the way said, how do we sell more pork? We associate it with a Christian holiday. Easy peasy. And it becomes a tradition. Whoever has the tradition of eating lasagna on Thanksgiving, please invite me to your house.
Oh, we're having
That is one of my favorite traditions, is when you eschew the tradition of the turkey and you go like, we're going to do pasta instead. And I go, that's great. I can do turkey any other time. I'm not making lasagna. Can you make it for me? Yeah.
You can always buy it.
No. Stouffer's lasagna is nothing like a good homemade lasagna.
Oh, no.
And I put a caveat. I love my mom, but she does not make a good homemade lasagna.
My wife does.
I am not a good cook.
She's not.
I am not a good cook.
And I'm
Identify.
proud of it.
Hey, Russell. My Anna does.
Oh, yeah.
And well, Anna cooks.
If you want to invite me, you can send a card to 705 Ridge Circle, Chesapeake, Virginia.
I'm sure she does.
But you notice he wasn't missing any meals.
That's
Yeah.
right, yeah. Hey, because even if it's bad, I'll still eat it, yeah. The dog turns his nose up at it, someone's got to eat it, yeah. So again, we take a thing that is so godly and so pure. God gives us an actual thing in Scripture, and then we still adulterate it. We take it and we go, oh, no. Jesus meant that figuratively. No, he didn't, because they were looking for something
They could see.
they could see. So if Jesus is going to give them something they can see, he's going to give them something that is actually there, like he says it, because then they can see it. Grown up all sorts of like, oh, one part of a day is a part of a day, and that's how they count it. Okay, well, Jesus puts that to rest by saying literal, 3 day, 3 night. Boom, that throws it out the window. So anytime you want to fight with someone, there you go, there's a fight. Stupid fight, but nonetheless one. And again, that's why I go back to AD 30 as Christ's death and resurrection, because of the way that the Sabbaths fall. That Passover Sabbath would have been on a Friday, so he wouldn't have been crucified on that day because they wouldn't have been doing work on that day. And then the Saturday would have been the normal Sabbath, and he would have risen Sunday morning. All makes sense. And then 40 years from the death and resurrection of Christ to the destruction of the temple, again, God loving 40, 70 AD in the spring. And that's recorded history. So again, when it comes to things like this, and I go, you want this? I'll show you that. I got that. That's the easy part. What's the hard part? It's this. Jesus is so, he wants all of you. Sometimes this doesn't fall under that. People who were lame and crippled or had diseases, women who had bleeding, you couldn't go to the temple. God demanded a total holiness. That included this.
You know, a question. The Pharisees were asking him for a sign or of a miracle. Do you think they really understood the thing about Jonah? You think, well, what's he talking about? I don't really think they...
How do I know that they would have understood it?
Well, it happened.
Because
I mean,
they were
They
the
remember
law.
Jonah, yeah.
They would have known it by rote. So when he says 3 days and 3 nights, they would have known that, not just scholarly, but it would have been something that they practiced to memorize. They would have known the minor prophet Jonah, and they probably could have recited it in Hebrew, exactly as it was written. Okay? So yeah. But again, under that temple, everything had to be 100% pure. But now, as he tells the woman at the well, there will come a time when you will worship. How?
In the mountain, didn't she say the mountain?
No, she says we worship on the mountain. We can't go to Jerusalem because the Jews don't let us go there to the temple. And Jesus says, truly, I tell you, there will come a time when you will worship in spirit and truth. We got to get away from the superficial. If someone wants to go and have a wonderful Easter service, God bless them. If someone wants to go and have a beautiful Pentecost service, I wish more churches would do Pentecost. Paul specifically wanted to get back to Jerusalem to be with the believers on Pentecost. Why? Because that was the time when they were freed of all of it. They were freed of sin. How do you get that freedom from sin? It gets washed away. How does it get washed away? In baptism. And what does that baptism do? You get the Holy Spirit. They celebrated that. We don't celebrate it. We celebrate Jesus. That's great. That's only the first step. That's the physical. The visual. We can see him coming out of the grave. What's the part we don't see? Spirit. Where are we supposed to worship? Spirit. We're still focused on this. I've never seen a church play that shows the day of Pentecost. It'd be a little difficult with tongues of fire with people's heads, but regardless. You could visualize that in paper form or something. The things that they celebrated in the first church, we oftentimes just overlook because we go back to what Catholics established because people want this. People love this. People eat this up. They see a preacher on stage dressed nicely, and the first thing is, he must be righteous because he looks good. You get somebody up there that's all sorts of shambles. They got a shirt that has a hole in it from cats. They wear work clothes. They don't wear the right shoes. They're not all polished. Their hair might be a little messed from wearing a hat. And yet they could be the holiest person you know. But you don't, because you can't get past this. In everything that we do, God wants you to be changed from the inside out. It starts here, the outpouring of the heart.
That's what it's all about.
I want you this week, and this is a challenge because, again, we won't be meeting next week. So that's why I throw everything together this week. I want you to pray for yourself, each and every one of you. And this is something I do every day before I go to work. That the Spirit would change me. That the Spirit would have me say what He wants me to say. That the Spirit would have me do what He wants me to do. That the words of my mouth would be flavored with grace. That the words of my mouth would build up my coworkers and not tear them down. That I wouldn't sit there and complain about things, but just do what I'm told and I'm supposed to follow my authority. If you pray that, I want you to focus on the praying for the Spirit to drive you. When you pray that prayer, little things pop up. You start to see, was that a good thing I did? That's the first question. Should I have said that? That's another question. When these questions start to pop up, you then start to listen to what you say. Does my heart really believe that? Do I really think that? Then we begin to look at the way that Jesus looks at us. He doesn't get to see that ripe apple. He doesn't see the outside. He's so focused on what's in here. Does anyone else have anything